what was life like for you growing up, as a kid? Did you have hobbies, interests,
Mhm.
um, where'd you grow up at? What city? Are you local or not? So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I grew up in Columbus on the south side of Columbus, near Schiller Park. That was basically my playground. My sister, my brother, and a couple cousins were very close. We ran around, played, just did good old fashioned kid stuff, built forts. We went to the swimming pool from the time they opened until the time they closed. We doubled each other on our bicycles. We got one day off of school, I think, in the whole, 20 years that we were, in school in Columbus Public. But grew up on the south side of Columbus, and that's where I resided until I was 37 years old. And then I moved to Northwest Ohio, still keeping all of my ties in Columbus and keeping my home in Columbus as well. So I moved to Ada, Ohio in 2007, and I maintain a home there as well as an apartment in Columbus that helps me with my travels all around the state.
Awesome, awesome. Now, growing up and going through your high school years, I mean, I always find it fascinating, interesting of like, was there anything that made you want to be an entrepreneur, right? Because as real estate agents, we're really small business owners, right? We really have to have that entrepreneur mindset. Was there any of that within your family or no?
No. So I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. I don't think anyone in my family owned a home. I may have been the first person to purchase a home in my family. I was 24 when I purchased my first home. And that was one of my big goals was by age 25, I wanted to have my home. And so I reached that goal, but it was very hard because of course, I went through the steps that you're supposed to, getting with a lender, getting your pre-approval and starting, there. And this was back in 1994. And so I went to the lender, which was a local bank. They had some great programs. I got approved for $30,000, and I said, "What am I going to buy with this? Like a trailer?" Which is fine. And I would have looked because my goal was to buy my first home. So whether it
Yeah.
was a trailer, whatever it was, I was doing that. And I bought my first home in the neighborhood I grew up in. That's the first thing I did was once I got my pre-approval, I said, well, where would I want to live? I'm a single lady. At this time, where would I want to live? And so where I felt most safe was where I grew up, which was the South Side. And most of those families still lived there. It might have been grandparents, but a lot of those families were still there. The families that I grew up with as a
Yeah.
child. And so I bought my first home on the south side of Columbus. I got approved for $30,000. I started looking in the area, and I said, I'm not going to find anything. And I the most beautiful house on the street where I grew up. I said, man, I would love to have that house, but that lady's been there forever. She's never going to sell it. The next day, it was for sale, and I didn't even need to really look at it. I knew I wanted it, and so that was my house. I bought that house. Beautiful little cottage house, wrought iron fencing, all the characteristics of German village era. um you know Slate roof. It was just a beautiful little home for me and my two dogs at that time, and I owned that home for about 30 years. And then I sold it to my son. So he actually purchased it from me when he was 19.
Wow.
And then he lived there and did some remodeling and ended up selling it as well. So that was my first home. And the reason why I got into real estate was because nobody wanted to help me. There wasn't enough money in it for them to waste their time on
Wow.
me for $30,000.
Yeah.
And here I am, just this girl with a goal, and nobody wants to help because it's all about what's in it for me. How much do I get? What
Yeah.
do I get out of it? And the lady who helped me, her name is Penny Call. She has passed away. She worked with Coldwell Banker. she was my realtor, and I think she inspired me to be a realtor, because she took that time to help me. I wanted to help others reach their goals, reach their dreams, and it wasn't about the money.
Yeah.
So she did help me with that, and that was my first home, and I'm so grateful to her. That may be why I went to Coldwell Banker, because such a connection. So that's how I got my first home, and I had no experience entrepreneur. I never even thought about doing anything on my own as far as business
Yeah.
wise. I had no clue.
Well, let's talk about that because it's interesting. What going through high school and up until that point, what did you go to college? Did you jump into the career field? What were those steps
Yeah.
after high school graduation?
So, little secret here, I played hooky at high school a lot. Um, the things that were most interesting to me were photography and, and science, things like that. So, I wasn't a real good high school student. I did quit high school and got a GED. So I did that. I should have graduated in 88. I received my GED, General Equivalency Diploma, in 1990. Yes, I have many degrees. I'm a lifetime learner. It just doesn't stop. So I have, I went into real estate. That was my first real career. And I did that from 2000 to about 2007, and I didn't get out of it because of the market by no means. But my son was, 4 or 5 years old, a toddler, and he was starting to play sports. And with real estate, it's 24/7.
Yeah.
So I said, like, I need a real job, 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
So I went to dental assisting school, and I received a diploma in dental assisting. I started dental assisting. Just regular old dental is kind of boring. So I went into some specialties, orthodontics, oral surgery, and that's where I got stuck, was oral surgery. I love the oral surgery piece of it. So from there, I went on to further my education and received an associate's degree in surgical technologist. So I, worked hand in hand, side by side with the surgeons, handing them the instruments during surgery. So I did that in the medical field for about 15 years, all along, side of that, working, other part-time jobs, because I
Yeah.
was still continuing my education. So I received a medical assisting degree, dental assisting degree, and surgical technologist degree that I focused on while my son was growing up and in school. And almost nearly, the day he walked out of high school graduation, he said, "Mom, you should go back to real estate." So I did. And a lot of it had to do with, he watched me work so hard and receive so little, um, that, we wanted to see more. We wanted to have more. And I've taken some, big name companies to, some top levels, and, for $10 an hour.
Hmm.
So I'm doing all this work, and you're receiving all of the benefits of my hard
Yeah.
work. I want to receive more benefits for my hard work.